All right. So your name and title.
My name is Andrew Allen, and I'm a professor at the J. Craig Venter Institute and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography at the University of California, San Diego.
Nice. So what is some science you're working on right now, if you can talk about it?
We work on phytoplankton, predominantly eukaryotic microalgae. So eukaryotic are more complex cells that have membrane-bound organelles, unlike bacteria. So things like dinoflagellates, diatoms, haptophytes, chlorophytes, and we work on the ecology of these phytoplankton. Why are there so many species? How are they distributed according to their ability to acquire resources and resource availability in the environment? And what's the molecular and genetic basis for physiological properties that dictate their ecological distributions? And then we also work on algae from a biotechnology side. So trying to harness the power of metabolic pathways and microalgae for things that might be useful for environmental problems or industrial applications. And so there's a whole branch of bioengineering that goes along with that. So how can we genetically manipulate microalgae and then design pathways and metabolic properties that would be of interest? And of course, this kind of work has gone on for bacteria and yeast for a long time, but in microalgae, it's really just the beginning. So we work on those kinds of things.
So with phytoplankton and microalgae, would I be sort of correct or oversimplifying it by saying you study the smallest of things that make the biggest of impacts?
That's exactly right. That's the power of the tiny invisible world that really controls the cycles of nutrients that are important for ecosystems and humans.
Brilliant. And so sometimes it's a little bit different for some people. So what science are you passionate about?
All of the science, Jeane. We're passionate about all the science that's going on in our lab and the labs of colleagues that we interact with. It's really an exciting time in the biosciences. If I had to sort of narrow it down a little bit, maybe what I'd kind of think about is the last 20 years of genomics, right, which have been explosive to say the least, in terms of how much the biology community worldwide has been able to learn about the fundamental properties that make organisms work, right? There's been an incredible pace of learning. It's been primarily concerned with the parts list, collecting the parts list. Organisms A, B, and C have these 10 genes, and these other organisms have those genes, but are missing a few and have some other ones. But the parts list is only the beginning of it. You can have sometimes two organisms that have identical parts lists, but they have different ecologies and different physiologies. And so why is that? One reason is that the parts lists, so to speak, could be regulated a little bit differently. So one has one type of engine, and the other might have another type of engine. And so, how are these differences in tuning the way that the parts lists synergistically make an organism? How are those differences? Where do they come from? And what generates that type of diversity? So really what this gets into is how genes are turned on and off. What makes them turn off? How loud do they go? How long are they on? And how much ecological variation results from just those features alone? And this is not something that we have worked on a lot or have a lot of expertise with even, but we've kind of stumbled into it, and it's become clear that it's really, really important, and that we need to understand a whole lot more about it if we want to make sense out of understanding, diversity of phytoplankton in the ocean, or and using microalgae industrially for important things. Understanding how these genes are tuned and all the different ways to tune them, seems to be very, very important. So we're interested in, I'm really passionate about developing methods to understand this, and to verify it, and then and learning more about it.
The knowledge explosion is coming soon to the world.
It seems to keep on. There seems to be no end in sight, right? The more you know,
The more
the more
questions.
you realize how little you know. I guess something like that.
And that's good. That's why you stay curious. Who has been an inspiration to you? It doesn't have to be a scientist, but it can be.
Who has been an inspiration to me? Wow. I mean, it's just impossible to enumerate all of the people that have inspired me along the way. I mean, so many. It's hard to pick just one. But one thing I will say is that I'm really inspired by when individuals, or more often when groups of individuals, working together can solve a problem, or design ways of learning about things that people just couldn't have imagined before. This is very inspirational when people can accomplish something that just had long odds. When people, the power of individuals to overcome difficult circumstances, whether it be with things that come up in life that people are faced with, to overcome and often thrive in the face of those things, or with knowledge, the power of human beings to make observations and measurements, and learn about the world around them, and then improve the situation, right? This is inspiring, right? Human beings have been doing it for thousands of years, but you think about what we've learned about how life works in the last 200 years only, and then what humans have been able to do with this type of knowledge is astounding to me. And I think that will continue. I'm also inspired by storytellers, right, and musicians that have the ability to put our experience in context. And there's an analogy probably to when groups of teams working together are able to create something that we couldn't have previously imagined. Just the way that storytellers are able to explain our experience to us in a way that seems so familiar, but we hadn't already articulated. I find that really, really, really amazing and interesting. I once heard a poet say something along the lines of, there's more information in a square meter of forest than there is in all of the libraries of mankind. And I don't know if that's exactly true or not, but what he was talking about, or she was talking about, was genetic information, and the information that organisms have about their environment to enable survival. So just things that get you to maybe look at things from a point of view that you hadn't really considered, and then that motivates a light bulb to go off. Those are the kind of things that are really inspirational. And if you look closely, they're around you all the time, every day. And there's so you have to handle all this inspiration somehow. It's not easy.
So I was really excited to ask you this question specifically. What kind of high school student were you?
What kind of high school student was I? Well, gee, I was not a particularly good elementary school student. I will say that. Um, but as I matured and really began to understand how exciting it is to learn, and how much there is to learn, when that light bulb went off, I started to become a much better student. And my parents were teachers in the humanities, and really encouraged me to develop reading habits, which didn't come easy, but when I did, I started to really read everything. And so I became a much better student. And I, I would say that I challenged myself. I always took extremely hard classes and lots of them. But I was definitely unfocused and undisciplined at times, and maybe not always as motivated as I needed to be. So I was a curious student. I was an above average student, but I was inconsistent and often not as disciplined as would have as I could have been, I would say.
Well, I think that would go into the next question of if you could give your high school self some advice from your present self, like Marty McFly going back in time, what advice would you give?
I think in high school and around that time in life, it's just very, very easy to, to believe that certain things are much more important than they actually are. And, I would just emphasize to myself that there's a really large world out there with a lot of very, very interesting people and things to do, and working hard and staying focused and developing discipline in high school is going to set you up to take advantage of that world, maybe more than anything else you can do at that time. So even if you don't like it and you hate it, it's a means to an end, because there's the world is so interesting and fascinating, and there's going to be so many opportunities that you want to take advantage of. You can really do yourself a favor by enabling you to really be in a good position to take advantage of those opportunities by just, doing well in high school. Learning and finding inspiration and passion is all extremely important. And, I wouldn't undersell it, but there's a certain amount of just, getting through it and getting through it well so that you can get on to the next thing. And, I would probably remind myself of that,
Yeah.
The means to an end aspect of it is something to keep in mind. And just, not the importance of not emotionally overreacting to what's going on in your circumstance at that time, because it's just, I think that it's easy to really let things blow up in your head, that what people think, or what some other people think is cool or whatever. Just stay focused and worry about you, and be friends with lots of different types of people if you can.
Random facts that I couldn't guess about you and could possibly not be Googled until after we post this.
Well, I guess my high school athletic career is probably before the age of the internet. So one thing is that I was a quad A state champion wrestler in high school. That's probably something that a lot of people who didn't know me at that time in life might not guess. My dad was a high school wrestling coach, and so I got introduced to that sport. And it's just whether it's learning to play the violin or the trumpet, or get really good at origami or fly fishing or needlepoint, any of these things, right? It just takes, wrestling is a craft, and it takes the big strong guys don't always win in high school, right? I mean, it's a combination of technique, strategy, and ability to execute under pressure. And so it's an interesting, it challenged me a lot. It was a long-term goal of mine to win a state championship, and I was able to do that. And I think that's helped me after that quite a bit. That was one random fact. Another random fact. I don't know. I can't really think of a good one.
Really? You got one.
I was an English major in college. That's a sort of a, I mean, you could find that by Googling me probably, but It's another thing. I didn't really know, what I wanted to do, in college at the beginning, but I liked literature and I liked uh, um, narratives and different points of view that came from reading, different kinds of experiences. Um, and yeah, I think that was really valuable because it forced me to get better at writing. And whatever you do in life, being more effective at writing is going to help you. And certainly in science, right, you have to write a lot of grant applications and things like that, and you have to um, try to persuade panels who have limited amounts of funding, right, that that the things that that you're working on are worthwhile. And sometimes maybe it comes down to being able to explain it more clearly or get people more excited about it. And that's something that, I mean, I don't think I'm great at it. I think we're always getting better, but I think you know being a humanities major and in college really is good for learning how to think about things in ways, learning how to think and write about complex topics. And that's going to be useful for whatever you do, whether you're an engineer or a doctor or a real estate developer, right? Any of those things.
Very cool. Well, it was really good talking to you. I hope teachers got to know a little bit more about you and bring you into the class for climate change, oceanography, microscopy, phytoplankton, diatoms, the smallest of things impacting the biggest of things, and so much more.
Yeah.
Call them out. Any last words that you want to say?
um, Stay curious, keep on sciencing,
What?
and um, keep learning.
All right, babe. Thank you so much. All right.